Summer is almost over here in southeast Michigan. We got about a week till fall. So right now is the perfect time to do an heirloom tomato review of the giant crimson tomato, also known as the 87-year-old tomato, because it was brought back from extinction by MIGardener. If you want to see the process, go to his YouTube channel and watch all the videos of how he brought it back with a old seed packet, got them to germinate, took cuttings, made plants out of them. It's pretty cool how it happened. But I've been seeing a lot of negativity when it's come to growing these from all the people that bought the seeds last year and grew them this year. There's a lot of complaints. So I'm going to give you an honest review of pros and cons of growing these plants, what I did to grow them successfully nice and big, and we're also going to taste the tomatoes to see what they taste like and see if they live up to the hype. So right away, I'm going to start out by saying these are an indeterminate heirloom variety. So if you're used to going to Home Depot and buying beefsteaks or cherry tomatoes and all these different hybrids they got there, these are going to be a little bit more difficult for you to grow. And I think that's where a lot of the problems come in, is because people are trying to treat these like they would those beefsteaks they're getting from Home Depot or Walmart. Indeterminate means that these are vining tomatoes, which means they're trying to grow upright, and they will continue to do so until they get killed by the frost, or if you live in a warmer climate, they're just going to keep growing. Being an heirloom variety means that these are not perfect. They're not hybrids that have been created by man to have consistent sized fruits on there, big red juicy fruits, plants that are disease resistant. They're pure. So there could be a lot of problems that you may face growing these, but it's because they're pure. So con number one is going to be fruit size. You look at the picture of the giant crimson tomato and you see this big heirloom variety with the ridges on it, and it does look like a typical heirloom, but then you plant these and all of a sudden you're getting small round tomatoes about this big. So in here's one that's still green. This is the typical heirloom shape you're going to get with those ridges on there. It kind of folds over a little bit. I got one over here that's starting to ripen up. This is what you're expecting when you plant this, but then you look around and you start seeing these smaller round guys, and you might be upset when you see that. I'm not. I really do not see this as a con. Being an heirloom means that all of these tomatoes are not going to look exactly the same. So when the sarcasm kicks in, like, oh yeah, these are real giant crimson, all right, I got news for you. These little guys are going to taste just as good as the bigger ones, and maybe even better, because they're going to ripen even fuller than the big ones will. And I started out with this con because I saw something on Facebook last night that upset me, because when someone comes in with a small tomato and says, oh yeah, this is a beefsteak, yeah, and holds up a little one and is upset about it and starts blasting a reputable seed seller, it just sounds greedy. And have you ever thought, maybe it's something you did growing the plants? Maybe it's not the seed's fault. I'm very happy with how these fruits turned out, so we're going to talk about that in a little bit. The second complaint I hear a lot about the giant crimsons is tomato blight. Now, I really don't know anything about tomato blight. I've been growing tomatoes for over 25 years, and I've never had blight once on any of my plants. But I do know there is one way to prevent it, and a lot of people aren't doing it. Apparently, the tomato blight lives in the soil, and then when it rains, the water splashes onto your leaves, and it infects the leaves, and in turn infects the whole plant, and will eventually kill them off. So if you're pruning your tomatoes correctly, like this one here, and all my tomatoes I got growing here, you notice I don't have any leaves here hanging down. This is just a bare stem. This is part of good pruning techniques anyway, because when you're growing these indeterminate tomatoes, any leaves down here aren't helping the plant out, and you do have the possibility of dirt splashing on them and those leaves spreading disease to the plant. So when we take them off, we're making bigger plants because we're focusing energy into the fruits, leaving the top ones, which are the powerhouse, the solar panels of our plants, and then our tomatoes are blight free, so we don't have to complain about blight anymore. This isn't really a con, it's just reality that the giant crimson tomatoes are kind of like your loser Uncle Larry, who is a heavy eater and a heavy drinker. They do prefer loose, rich soil. And as far as watering, you got to keep these things watered. When we had the drought going on here, I was out every single day watering these plants. And it's also important to give them a decent mulch near the ground to retain some of that moisture. I found fresh grass clippings to work really good for that. And as the grass clippings were decomposing, they were also throwing more nitrogen into the soil, which is important for your tomato plants. Lots of complaints about the giant crimsons from people in southern climates where they have mostly clay soil and probably not a lot of rain. If you're in places like that, this might not be the best variety for you to grow. The complaints about these things splitting kind of goes back to the whole watering thing. Inconsistent watering is going to cause your tomatoes to split. But the good news is, the splitting does not affect the taste of them. You can cut that part off. Same thing with the blossom end rot. Getting a little bit of blossom end rot in some of these guys. Not all of them though. And I'm okay with a little blossom end rot, a little splitting here and there, because we're going to move on to the pros of these plants. And as you can see, these things are big producers. Typically with the indeterminate tomatoes, you single stem them. That means you grow the vine up one stem. So I did a pruning video earlier where I decided to double and triple stem some of these plants, and the results were amazing. So the idea is with single stemming, you're going to get less tomatoes because you don't have as many vines coming up, but you're going to get more big ripe tomatoes. And if you left this whole plant without any pruning, you're going to get tons of tomatoes on there, but a lot of them are going to be small, and you get a lot that don't ripen up. So I met in the middle and decided to leave 2 or 3 stems on these. So starting from the base here, let her split, and I grew 2 vines off a single plant. And I'm very pleased at how this turned out. I don't need the biggest tomatoes. I just want to have a decent amount of ripe tomatoes to eat. And I even did get some bigger tomatoes doing this. So let's look at this plant here. Look at these clusters. I've had some of these get so heavy that they actually broke off. But at this point, I really have more tomatoes than I can even eat. And they're ripening up really good towards the bottom here. Just real nice, healthy fruits on these guys. And if you go over here, we got some ripening up down here. And you come up, and there's big ones up top, just coming up the vine that are eventually going to ripen too. As far as production, these giant crimsons are going to give you a lot of tomatoes when done right. I don't know if anyone else had the same luck, but I really have not had any pest problems with the giant crimsons. There's no aphids at all on these, and I only pulled off 4 hornworms the entire season. If you grew giant crimsons and you had any problems with pests, let me know in the comments. What I like too about these is the size. So this plant right here is approaching 8 to 9 feet tall right now. It just looks pretty cool out in the garden. It's actually taller than the trellis system I made to support it. And there are tomatoes growing all the way up the vine, so that's a pretty good problem to have. There really aren't any problems with these plants that you can't overcome, and I'm actually very happy at how these turned out. It takes a little extra effort to grow these, so is it worth it? How do they even taste? Let's find a ripe one and give her a shot. I have tried these. They are delicious tomatoes. I love them. But I want to show you something very important when it comes to picking your giant crimsons. There's 2 phases of ripening, and if you wait till the second phase, they're going to taste even better. Usually you'd look at some of these tomatoes and think they're ready, like this one here. It's red. I could pick this now. I can eat it. It'll taste good. But if you wait a little while longer and wait till they actually turn this deep crimson color versus just red, they're going to taste even better. Let's pop her off. This is the one we're going to try eating right now. See how she tastes. Decent size round tomato. Not like the heirloom you'd expect, but it is a giant crimson nonetheless. And it's a very healthy looking giant crimson. So let's take a bite and see how she tastes. It is very good. I really like these tomatoes. Something I noticed about these is some of them barely have any seeds, and one like this is just loaded with seeds. But look at that deep red color inside there. These are really good tomatoes. really hard to describe the taste of something on camera, besides just saying it tastes really good. They're a little bit sweeter than other tomatoes, and they're a little bit softer, especially when you let them hit that crimson state. A lot of times when I eat tomatoes, I like them cooler, so I put them in the fridge first. But these giant crimsons taste better when they're warm. These are great if you just want a snack when you're out in your garden. You can just pick one of the giant crimsons off the vine, just walk around and eat it. So when all said and done, would I recommend these? Yes, I would. Just know it's going to take a little bit of extra effort to grow them, but in the end, it is well worth it. It's really hard to beat a delicious, rare heirloom tomato. You give them what they need, and they'll give back to you. If nothing else, I hope this review of the giant crimson just opens up some people's minds to thinking maybe it's not the seed I'm growing or the variety, maybe it's what I'm doing wrong. When you see the people online bashing the giant crimson tomatoes, get it for yourself and give it a shot and see how you do. I'm about to throw down another one of these bad boys, so as always, thanks for watching.